Mrs. Ease, I actually I enjoyed your presentation, and I agree with the notion of a dedicated transfer. And I think that ultimately, the notion of a dedicated transfer would help us to at least put pressure on the provinces, and certainly student groups to put pressure on the provinces not to pull back their funding. Now, and John mentioned this as well, we just heard from the Millennium Sponsorship or Scholarship Program Foundation previously, and they talked about having very, very low administrative costs. You talked about it being an increase of 400%. Could you just 500%? I'm sorry. Could you just reiterate that?
Yeah, certainly. And I think I wasn't here for their presentation, unfortunately, before me. But if you look through their annual reports, it's very clear. You can see the increase in administrative costs. And I think certainly we've had a concern for a number of years with regards to the money being wasted and not spent on direct student financial assistance. But most concerning, or largely concerning, I would say, in the last couple of years, has to do, surprisingly enough, with contracts, so no-bid contracts, and particularly last year, a $4 million contract awarded to the Educational Policy Institute, an employee of the foundation being involved with that contract procurement process, and then moving over to the institute that was awarded the contract. So certainly we've not had, not gotten any answers about that, and we just encourage the committee to.
Ms. Washley, please, 5 minutes.
I mean, do you think that it makes the most economic sense to take whatever surplus you've got and put it all against the debt, even if there are no programs left to invest in, as Mr. Luke is suggesting, or Mr. Vanest is suggesting? Is there another way to ensure that some of the needs you're talking about are met? So we're looking after the fiscal debt, but also the infrastructure debt, and also the human debt, and also the social debt. So Mr. Dale and Amanda Aziz, if you could start.
I'm not an economist, but I do believe in investing in the future, and I think our young people, our young researchers, and our research, and our graduate programs, and our graduate students are the future, and I think we should invest in them somehow.
Thank you.
I would reiterate what Mr. Dale says, and I mean, we've certainly had a long time policy of wanting an increase in investment from the federal government for post-secondary education, and certainly, we've had that for years since the big cuts back in the mid-90s. So certainly we are, I guess to be short, obviously in favor of an increase in investment.
Mr. Savage. Thank you, Chair. Ms. Aziz, does the Fed have a position on what's happened with the C-48 monies?
Yes, absolutely. We were very disappointed to see that the money didn't come through in the 06 budget with regards to the $1.5 billion committed to improving access at our institutions. And certainly we've raised that in previous context. I know that there was new money put into infrastructure, certainly in the 06 budget, which was welcome for our institutions. There's obviously deferred maintenance at institutions across the country. But it's our position that the infrastructure funding, though welcome, does not uphold the spirit of the C-48 money, which was to improve access to post-secondary institutions.
I'm a big fan of the Federation. As you probably know, I've traveled Canada, and I've met with CFS students across the nation. I agree on most things. I've been boycotted occasionally, which is similar to being ambushed on some issues. I'm not sure I agree with you on ICLRs, income contingent loans. We'll discuss that further, and I'm not sure about the Millennium. But I do want to get back to this issue. You have something in your brief titled, Helping Those Who Need Help the Least, which I think was the title of the 2006 budget document when it was presented in the House, or else it should have been. And I want to ask you, go back to Mr. McCallum's question. The federal transfers for education, post-secondary, have gone down, but the federal contribution to post-secondary has stayed the same at 25%, different mechanisms. If we go to a dedicated transfer, which I support, and if you put more money in to go back strictly on the transfer to, say, late 80, early 90 levels, how do you also give direct assistance to students? And is it not really a choice between direct assistance to students or giving it to the province in the hope that it might trickle down to students?
your question refers to the part of our brief which talks about tax credits for students, and I wouldn't dispute the fact that there is money, certainly that money in the system has stayed consistent, but is just being allocated in different ways. So new programs and new means by which students are to gain assistance. Sadly, tax credits and a number of other programs haven't had the effect that they're supposed to have had or meant to have had. So being created to assist students. Many students do not benefit from things like tax credits. Many students do not benefit from things like interest relief. Statistics Canada came out with a study a couple of weeks ago that showed that half of those are who are eligible aren't using interest relief. But to get to your question with regards to a choice, we're not. It's not our position that we put all the money into federal transfers. Those go to the universities, and we do nothing on the access side. There's a very easy way to provide access and to provide those assistance to students, and it's through upfront grants. So it's not through back-end measures like tax credits or interest relief. It's through reducing the upfront costs by regulating tuition fees. It's the easiest thing to regulate with regards to cost for students, but also providing low-income grants. In the 2004 budget, a new low-income grant was introduced, which to us signaled, that there was an acknowledgement that the Millennium Scholarship Foundation wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. That grant program can be expanded and help more low-income Canadians.
Thank you very much. I agree with everything you've just said.